Today also happens to be a pivotal day here in the United States. June 14th marks what is anticipated to be the largest protest yet, and is against the ongoing attacks on civil liberties and democracy as communities across the country mobilize to defend the rights and dignity of immigrants, people of color, and marginalized voices. At We Are One Humanity, we believe that justice is global and that the fight for human rights, dignity, and accountable leadership spans borders. In that spirit, we invite you to read Margaret Eastman Smith's powerful piece published earlier this week on our platform that unpacks the unfolding situation in LA and the rising tide of resistance from immigrant communities and concerned citizens nationwide. Now, we turn our attention to Nigeria, not in isolation, but in connection. The crises of governance, corruption, and migration are not unique to one country, but a part of an interconnected global story that demands our awareness and action. Today's discussion is one of the many conversations needed to deepen our understanding of our shared responsibility. Joining us as your moderator on today's panel is Dr. Inya Ode, who is a broadcaster, media personality, and trained veteran who has spent over a decade using the power of dialogue to inform, engage, and inspire. Dr. Ode has hosted a wide range of impactful programs since 2012, including the widely respected Midday Dialogue and Let's Talk Sundays. Since 2020, she has transitioned from radio into the development sector, where she now works with Lux Terra Leadership Foundation, focusing on values-driven leadership, civic engagement, and nation building. Today, we will also be joined by panelist Dr. Mustapha Kurfi, a scholar of sociology, language, and African studies, currently serving as a senior lecturer at Bayero University, Kano, in Nigeria. With a PhD in sociology from Boston University and a dual master's degree in sociology and international studies from Ohio University, Dr. Kurfi brings a rich interdisciplinary lens to his work. A leading expert in Anjami, and especially Hausa Anjami, which is the Arabic script used for writing African languages, Dr. Kurfi has authored several groundbreaking works and digitized thousands of Ajami manuscripts for the African Ajami libraries at Boston University, including A Practical Guide to Learning for Hausa Ajami, published in 2017, and the Hausa Ajami Workbook for Public Health, published in 2022. Rajmohan Gandhi, which is our special guest today, has been a journalist, a professor teaching history and politics in the United States and India, and an author of biographies and histories, a member of the Rajya Sabha, which is the upper house of India's parliament, and is the grandson of the legendary Mahatma Gandhi. He has been writing on democracy and human rights since 1964, when, with a few friends, he started a weekly called Himmat in Mumbai. Himmat has been replaced by his website, now called We Are One Humanity, a human rights-centered publication that brings together change-makers from around the world to decipher and analyze the most pressing issues of our time. We hope today's conversation will not only shed light on Nigeria's current moment, but also spark ideas, solidarity, and action for what is possible. I would also like to quickly add that we will have time for a short Q&A at the very end, so please put your questions into the chat as we will make time to answer them later. Now, to guide us through today's conversation, I will pass it over to our moderator, Dr. Inya Ode. Inya, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Rhonda. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. It's such an honor and a pleasure for me to be here as part of One Humanity that we are, to guide this conversation on Nigeria, on the 200 million plus people in this country. And a lot of people find Nigeria very interesting. I think Nigerians also find Nigeria very interesting as well. And that is why this conversation is so apt, particularly at this time, because we just celebrated a few days ago Democracy Day. And since 1999, we have had some years of unbroken democracy, and that has stood for us and actually kept us in the loop of all that is going on in our country and across the world. So while Nigeria is grappling with issues around the economy, around corruption, and all the negatives, we still have something to celebrate, that we have had democracy for a number of years, and that is something to be thankful for. But just before we kickstart, just to say our condolences and our sympathies to all those who lost their lives, all those who are bereaved at this time, particularly from the Air India crash that happened a few days ago. It was very sad news to grapple with. And we know that indeed India, the world, because these are citizens of the world who have died, and we pray that they rest in peace and that their families find solace and comfort through this season, and that their memories remain a blessing for all those they left behind. That's our prayer at this time. Okay, so to get into this conversation, I'm so honored and glad to have Dr. Kurfi here. So honored to meet and have Professor Rajmohan also on this call. And we look forward to a very healthy and, purpose-driven and solutions-driven conversation. We know a lot has been said in previous times, but hey, who knows what will come out of this that will be said and heard, and definitely make a difference in our country and of course in the world over. But Dr. Kurfi, let me just hit you with this first question, as the case may be, on the situation in Nigeria. I mean, we say Nigeria is blessed. The whole world knows Nigeria is so blessed with rich resources, with fantastic weather. Yes, it can get very hot sometimes, but then it's still great weather, away from all the natural disasters and so many things that happen across the world. Nigeria is blessed, but it's so backwards at the same time. How do we reconcile that? And what are the effects, really, of greed and corruption on the Nigerian state? I know you could write a thesis on this, but let's just break it down a little bit for all those who would really want to understand the Nigerian situation. Over.
Of the season, can you hear me all? All
Yes.
right, compliments of the season. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sure we'll have you back shortly. Dr. Kurfi, I think it's just a challenge with the network. I hope we can have you back very, very shortly to continue this conversation. And of course, hear what exactly you would have to say concerning the greed and corruption we have in our country. But Professor Rajmohan, let me throw this to you before we come back to him. I mean, when you hear of Nigeria, for instance, what kind?
Sorry,
So
there
you
was a
need
break
to
in
unmute.
transmission. Can you hear me now?
Okay.
It's one of those effects of corruption, you know. So we have problems to do with
Okay.
power failure. We have problems to do with even, the internet connectivity. When I was doing my PhD in the US, I would pay for the whole month, the whole package, nonstop. But here it's pay as you go, yet you cannot get the service that you want. Anyways, it's one of the effects of corruption, like I was saying earlier before now. Corruption is so endemic that it affects virtually all the sectors that you know, whether it is in the economy spheres, whether it is at individual or interpersonal relation level, whether it's to do with patriotism, because in a society that is that has a lot of people that are corrupt, you get to realize that even your own identity gets to be seen differently. Travel around the world. 2018, when I finished my PhD and returned to Nigeria, I had high hopes. I returned in June, just like this month. In August, I traveled to perform pilgrimage, but I could see a lot of differences in terms of how internationals were relating to Nigerians. Everybody was relating to a Nigerian or an assumed Nigerian. Assumed Nigerian means somebody who is Black, notably from Africa. The simple conclusion is this guy is a Nigerian, he's a scam, he's a 419er, he is somebody that you don't need to trust. We were before the Holy Mosque performing pilgrimage, and other rituals. but you could see how, other people from other countries were being very skeptical of us. Many factors play out. We are not exonerating ourselves to say there are no bad eggs among us. There are, but they are so few and insignificant in terms of number compared to those that are good people. But the fact that leadership is at the center of everything, it is the corruption at leadership level that erodes the image, if you will, of Nigeria and the image of Nigerians. When you have corruption, as I was having this informal conversation before coming in here, I even sent the PowerPoint talking about how an average Nigerian either is a victim of corruption, or he himself is corrupt, or is a witness to corruption, or a combination of some of these, if not all. Now, how does that affect Nigeria, Nigerians, and the global, and the globe? It affects Nigerians, just like the example I cited. It affects you, it affects your psyche, how people are. In fact, I have seen people who will even deny their nationality to say, I'm not a Nigerian. I am from Niger. I am from Ghana. I am from Togo and all that, So it affects the interpersonal relation at levels of individuals, because it sometimes affects your own psyche. Why am I treated differently? Even if you were a cleric, still that doubt is there. People will be thinking, let's be very skeptical with this person, because chances are he's gonna, do something harm to us. That's one. Two, at the level of economy, which is the biggest, it is the root of our evils. Think about the Boko Haram attacks, or the insurgency, or the kidnaps, which are very rampant now. In my hometown in Kurfi, in Katsina State, I had events, including the just recent Salah. I couldn't go because my local government is one of those that every single day we receive reports of attacks and kidnaps and maims and name it. These are all as a result of corruption. Why? Because if the security operatives are there doing the needful, problems like that will not have happened. Come to think of it, Dr. Inya, I call you on my cell phone, or call you on your cell phone and say whatever I want, jargons about you. That phone conversation could not only be recorded, but could be tracked, and I will be traced in the next few hours, especially if you are highly connected. But why is it that those who are receiving ransom are using the same cell phones to call and say that we need you to bring so amount of money, either in cash or in material? They could say, okay, we want you to buy so vehicles, bring so recharge cards for cell phones, do this, do that. And yet the security operatives cannot track that. We've had a lot of complaints, not just complaints, but evidence mounted that there are situations where security operatives are conspiring with the insurgents, or they could make phone calls and say, you know what, we're free. We know that we can do our operations in ABC areas. Nothing is going to happen for the next 2 days. Nothing is going to happen. So all these elements of corruption that actually, bring down the reputation of the country. Importantly, let's not forget about those who are siphoning public funds. And that's the worst part of corruption. You siphon public funds that are meant to provide essential services. Universities should be funded, hospitals should be equipped, professionals should be there. I know we have a question that addresses JAPA, which is going to come later. It's all like, let me cite an example with my own self. When I went to the US for the first time in 2008 for my second master's in international studies at Ohio University, Athens, the first thing that I was impressed about, among other things in the education and all that, was the fact that after spending about 6 months, I filed for tax refund. I didn't take it serious because it was never happening in my country. In my country, I work extra hard. The state government deducts from my salary in the name of tax. The
Taxes.
same federal government deducts from my salary. My professional association, the union, will deduct union dues directly, every other deductions.
Yeah.
But here I am, just an international student. A couple of months later, after filling up some paperwork that I didn't even take serious, I just received 1,200 US dollars as tax refund.
Wow.
Yeah, I was like, and as at that time, I was teaching in the university before I left. So the amount I received was nothing to be compared to what I was paid. Okay, let's talk of the present. When I was doing my PhD, I was receiving $2,000 stipends every month. 2,000 US dollars. Granted, I lived in one of the most expensive cities in the world, Boston, because it could be up to 1,000 or 1,200 or even 1,500 for your accommodation, right? But $70 would be enough for me to travel, to go around the town from morning to night with my card that I would use on trains, on buses. That means there is something that really makes adequate provision for the services that are essentials that you need.
Sure.
It's not as if we do not have the resources to do it here, but we have few who siphon the funds and invest the money. Unfortunately, most of them invest abroad. They cannot even claim the money after they are dead or even when they are alive.
Okay.
The whole thing is something that you cannot just comprehend. And it's just like what somebody is saying, that if I, Dr. Kurfi, require, say, 100,000 US dollars to live a comfortable life, why siphoning 1 billion US dollars? I don't need it. I don't need it. So I like the idea of even the name as well as the objective of we are one humanity. Always think of what do I do to touch the lives of other people?
Absolutely.
What do I do? Again, Giving. Giving is a book by the former American president, Bill Clinton. He asked a rhetorical question. Giving, like Giving. Is it the person who is in dire need who receives what is given that is happier, or the person who gives out? It's a rhetorical question. Ordinarily, you know what? When you are given and you are in the need, it's some people will even like shed tears, crying because they are happy. It's not my problem. I am in the hospital, either myself or my significant other or my parent. I do not even know where to go to get money to cater for the needs of the health needs of this beloved person. And somebody simply comes and says, what's going on? I've taken care of everything. Treat the person. But the interesting part of the entire scenario is Bill Clinton argues, and I find his response very impressive, that the person who gives is happier.
Absolutely.
Once I give, I have played my part. That part of my obligation, I've taken care of it.
Yeah.
Person who receives will be happy. So another thing I like about the American system is that giving system. That has become something that they have internalized. Your thought is always thinking about giving.
The other person.
Always have challenge.
The other person.
Okay, we have a challenge in my department or in my faculty. We want to raise 10,000 US dollars. give even if it is little. At the end, we're able to touch on the lives of people who are in need. Say, as the families of the Indian plane crash, for example.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Think of
Yeah.
giving, not always receiving. Not always receiving, right? So, yeah, I'm gonna so
Okay.
even in the education system, it's psychological kind of. The system I was trained in here before I traveled to the US were British trained, right? And so it's the opposite of it's directly, the Paulo Freire's pedagogy of the oppressed. The listener listens and the speaker speaks. And you don't have anything to offer but just to accept that. But upon arriving, I realized that my opinion was valued. I will be listened to. So it's not as if you are there just to receive, but you are there to be taught how to be critical in your thoughts. Ask questions, that kind of a thing. So I realized, worlds apart. What's happening in this part of the world is different from what is happening over there.
What's happening elsewhere?
Currently, I'm an assistant professor since 2003. My salary is less than $250. And no Nigerian professor receives up to $800, not even talk of $1,000. No Nigerian professor, regardless of portfolio, that receives up to that amount. Don't forget, we spent 8 months at some point on strike.
Exactly, on strike.
Striving for the government to fulfill its part of obligation. It has promised to do that. They refuse to do that in terms of betterment of the system, right? Not even to talk of the salary or betterment of whatever, but even the system itself. So,
but Dr. Kurfi, let me just lead up, follow up with you, especially on that point you just raised about government and about leadership. One would say, yes, where the leaders, take the lead, right? People will follow. Where they say, yes, this is how we'll go, people will follow. I mean, you've mentioned a number of things on giving, on responsibility, you've mentioned quite a number of things, but what role does leadership have to play in this whole gamut that we're talking about, whether it's greed or corruption? They're all intertwined. What role does leadership have to play?
This is a great question. And, it's not as if the leaders we have are coming from another continent or another world, right? They are part of us. We are the ones that produce these leaders. Okay. Permit me to set example with Professor Rajmohan. From the name Gandhi, you must have heard the name of Gandhi, even before we were born and when we were born, and you will see his pictures and images and all that. It was not like he accumulated earthly wealth for his children or his grandchildren. It was the good name that he left. So leadership is very, very important, especially when it comes to fighting corruption and becoming a role model. If you are not a role model that people can look up to and say, oh, you know what? I really cherish the characteristics, the attributes of this person. It's nonsense. I have seen people that when I was little younger, their parents were super rich. Super rich. I'm not talking about how they got the wealth, but they are rich, at least. Cream de la cream. But the children now thought, you know what? My parents have it all. Why do I have to study? Why do I have to work hard? Why do I have to learn skills? Let me just relax. I'm going to inherit fortune. But now they are the ones going around to beg those that worked hard. So hard work is there. But people who go through the corruption, especially those who are always aspiring to get to the mantle of leadership, are not interested in becoming role models themselves. They are interested in satisfying their selfish aggrandizements. But the most important thing is for a leader to always have his people at the heart. Let me think of salvaging them. Let them and their yet unborn generations benefit from my leadership. Go back to history. When we got our political independence in 1960, those people that we still hear their names and feel, wow, I didn't live to witness when Zik was alive, Awolowo was alive, Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was alive, Ahmadu Bello was alive. But these are people who have made name, not just because they were busy in corrupt practices, but because they were busy doing the right thing. So they made the name. They made the name. So leadership, in essence, if you do not have good leadership, you are not likely going to, take your country to the next level. So a situation whereby to get to the mantle of leadership, you follow corrupt practices. And that is why it comes and affects every sector. For example, begin with elections. Many politicians were not really elected. They rigged the elections to become whatever they become. And so since they went through the back door to enter, they will make sure that they siphon public funds through various corrupt practices. Again, even those who are there through democratically elected processes that is not or that are not corrupt, you get to realize that many of the good ones among them actually had godfathers who sponsored them. Those godfathers who stood for them because probably they have money, they have means, they have whatever, they themselves are corrupt. So even if Dr. Inya is a good person, but she is being backed up by those corrupt people, they are not likely to allow her to work. I am not
and that's
sorry, let me just say this very quickly before I ask the next question. I am not trying to exonerate the followership. The followership itself has its own role to play. It has its share of the crime or the sin. Why? Because let me set an example. When I picked up my teaching job back in 2004, my first salary was 17,000 naira. And when I collected that money from Kano, I traveled to Kaduna, and then I gave 5,000 to my mom, 5,000 to my dad, 5,000 to my immediate younger sister, who was a widow then. My dad thanked me and prayed for me, same with mom, parents. But my sister was like, you know what? I deserve more than this. I'm like, are you for real? Are you for real? So the idea is you've got relatives, you've got cycle of friends, you've got people who want to join the bandwagon.
The sycophants are there as well.
There are sycophants. Those that will sing and say, oh, you the best, everything is going well. So do this, do that. There are ways we can, go around and, you siphon public funds. Do not even do the needful. Don't worry, just go. Yeah. And the next thing will be like a problem. The problem of corruption now becomes institutional. It becomes, something that even, gets deep into the fabrics of people.
Into the system, yes.
To the extent, if you are not corrupt, you'll be an outlier. People look at you like.
And a lot of people actually go through this. They're looked at as, what's wrong with you? I mean, this is the way we do things here.
Are you not innocent for you to say that we have to do the needful? We have to do, the right thing? Yeah. In my department, for example, there are people who sometimes say, oh, Mustapha is arrogant. And I say, well, I don't care whether you like me or not, but one fact remains. When the truth comes, I will speak about the truth. Absolutely. You will never find me wanting in my job. It's time for me to teach, I will teach. Time for me to do this, I will do that. But what you want is for me not to do the needful, but to follow the bandwagon of those who are corrupt. No.
And I think, sir, just following up with that, and, you know, referencing the great Mahatma Gandhi and what he says. He says a word I love so much that he says is be the change you want to see. So if we want change, then we have to be that change for it to happen. And I think that's the issue with the citizenry. So we're not actually, you know, bold enough, so to speak. A lot of people are not bold enough to be the change that they actually want to see. So while we want to see the change, we want to see a better country, where we all complain about the state of Nigeria now, but are we bold enough to actually be that change? And, you know, following up on that, you know, is a look at the anti-corruption agencies. I mean, from time immemorial, and then specifically going back to the period of 1999, when Nigeria, you know, got back to democratic rule and all of that. We had we do have a number of anti-corruption agencies. We have the EFCC, the ICPC is there. We have the BPP. There's so many, the Public Complaints Commission, there's so many anti-corruption agencies. And yet, we still have this gamut of corruption happening with us. What exactly is going on? Are the agencies not doing their work? Are they also
this is a good question, and I like it. So, you see, the great Gandhi was arguing that for people to fight corruption completely, they have to be vigilant. They themselves have to be vigilant. It's not enough for you to say the establishments, if you will, the parastatals, EFCC, ICCP, TOGA, whatever, have to, they need to be independent. Yeah, because sometimes you get to hear complaints here in Nigeria about even the people you appoint to lead those, you know, anti-corruption agencies. But we as citizens, what are we doing at our level? Let me cite a few examples. Example number one, studies conducted in 2011 reveal that Nigerians are among the most religious people in the world.
Yes.
In the entire world. I think then we were ranking 94%.
Wow.
Now, every leader that assumes mantle of leadership, president, vice president, governor, speaker, House of Reps, whatever, belongs to a particular religion, at least in principle and in records. Either you're a Muslim or a Christian. Yeah, we have people who believe in traditional religion. Regardless, the question is, what are the clerics in those religions doing to draw the attentions or to fight corruption, to fight leaders that are corrupt? Few are doing that. We're not saying nobody is doing that. But the question is the religious institution, as well as the leaders of religion, are they really doing what they ought to? We know the story of some God-fearing pastors that when you bring tithe to them, to the church, knowing fully too well that the money was ill-gotten, they will tell you, no, we don't need your money. It's ill-gotten. We don't need your wealth. You know what I'm saying? They will have a way of preaching or sending a message to them. Unfortunately, many religious leaders will rally around and become sycophants, like you mentioned, and not do the needful. That is one. Two, in Nigeria, if, for example, say somebody who is called Zahraddin Kurfi, for example, Zahraddin Kurfi is now, say, the central governor of the central bank. And Zahraddin Kurfi, say, for example, siphons funds from Nigeria and maybe invest somewhere or establish some estates and what have you. The first thing that Dr. Mustapha Kurfi says is, no, they are hunting him because he is a Muslim, because he is Hausa Fulani, because he is a northerner.
Yeah.
It is our attitude. There is no way we can progress with that attitude. Corruption has no face, has no religion, has no ethnic group, has nothing. Those who are corrupt up there agree among themselves on everything. Even the issue of other variables like religion, gender, region, ethnicity, they are insignificant. They are not important. And that is why most of those who are corrupt at the level of leadership, you get to see that they don't really have much differences among themselves, except perhaps political differences.
Right.
Say I belong to
Right.
party Z, Dr. Inya belongs to party P. And even that is temporary because in politics, there is no permanent
We
friend
can
and
move
no
from one
enemy,
party
but
to
permanent
another.
interest. Chances are, in the next few months, I'm going to decamp to your own party. Like we are witnessing in Nigeria now. Governors,
Absolutely.
senators, members, House of Reps are trying to murder democracy by making Nigeria one party
A one state,
nation.
one party state. Yeah. Yeah.
So another thing that also makes those parastatals that are anti-corruption agencies to work effectively and efficiently is that the politicization of the organizations of the parastatals themselves. For example, I was in the opposition. I stole a lot of money. I did a lot of bad things. But now that elections are around the corner, I decamp to the ruling party. I am exonerated.
Just to say
And
protected.
again, unfortunately,
Protected. Yeah.
instead of that,
Yeah.
zero tolerance level for corruption like Gandhi was preaching for, now my people will come and honor me and say, yes, you've done well. In fact, if we can get something, some share from the national cake, that will be fine. And Dr. Inya, what hurts me the most is, it is mainly in Nigeria that you get to see that those who have accumulated a lot of earthly wealth, as against the simple life that was promoted by great Gandhi and
By
the
the
like.
leaders. Yes. Yes.
After siphoning more than what you need, you now go into vanity. And that's why I was thinking, it was going to be in the form of, presentation, but all the same. Greed is strongly related to corruption, but also strongly linked to vanity, especially in Nigerian context. Corruption is mostly found among officials that are using their own positions. And that is why when you are defining corruption, you find it as corruption, that is C, equals O, opportunity, minus integrity.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. If you have integrity, you will not be that corrupt. Let me set an example. In the advanced countries, when you are driving your car and you get to traffic light, even if it is say 2:30 a.m., nobody is around there, you'll still wait.
Absolutely.
Until the traffic light shows green and then you move on. Do you see the point?
Yes.
Whether or not there are security cameras, you still do that because you now having this feeling that I need to do the needful because
it is the right thing
judge
to
me
do.
right.
It's the right thing to do.
Unfortunately, we don't get much of that in societies that you have leaders who are highly corrupt. They don't care.
Okay, let me just pause you. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time. I mean, this is a conversation that
probably
we
the
have
question and answer section will take care of other things.
To go on and on and on. But I need to bring in Professor Rajmohan into this. I mean,
yes, please.
It's time to hear you speak, sir, because you are someone who has spent a lot of your life, right, exploring questions on governance as a journalist, on justice, on people's movements and all of that. I mean, we won't even want to get into why We Are One Humanity actually came to the fore. But then, as I said earlier, I wonder what lessons or parallels you might see, in Nigeria's current reality. When you hear all of this, with the challenges that we're facing, as per corruption, as per leadership, as per followership also, because that is key. What comes to your mind, sir? Let's just hear you. Please unmute.
Professor Gandhi, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, we're waiting to hear from him. You need to unmute him.
Yeah, he'll be unmuted shortly.
I think I'm gonna unmute
Okay,
him, right?
Yes, back end will handle that. Please, can he be unmuted so we can hear from him and garner from his wisdom?
Can you now hear from me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Well, I thank you both, Dr. Inya, Dr. Mustapha. May I also thank you, Dr. Inya, for your remark about the Air India crash. I was touched very much by, and Dr. Mustapha also seconded your remarks, and I'm very grateful as somebody from India for your thoughtfulness there about that
Thank you, sir.
tragedy some days back. Now, let me say this, that when I was a long time ago, when I was a very young man, I was living at the time in the UK. I had the chance to meet many gifted Nigerians. Believe it or not, I met Chief Awolowo. I met the Emir of Kano. I met people close to Dr. Ezekwe. So if today, I heard your remarks, both of you, about the sadness you have that in some parts of the world, people have some kind of fixed ideas of what Nigerians are like. But I think that if we find Nigerians like yourselves grappling honestly with corruption and with greed, and these are global sicknesses, by the way, these are not sicknesses confined to Nigerians, but if we find Nigerians grappling courageously, honestly with these issues, there will be unexpected hope. And I would say that we need not just a clear understanding, clear expression, strong views, but we need, if possible, to see circles of honesty, circles, not just one individual, two individuals, but a group of people in a town, in a neighborhood, come together and stay together, and who want to practice honesty, who also want to listen to each other. You know that in India, we also have this, like Nigeria has, we have also many religions, we have many sects, we have many ethnic groups, many linguistic groups. And one thing that we have failed to do is to really know about one another. We have opinions about one another, but we don't have knowledge about one another. And this comes from our inability to listen to one another. We just talk a lot, but we don't listen to one another. But I was also, I don't know when I'll get the chance, I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask. I don't know whether this is the moment.
Yeah, please go ahead. Just go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I had two questions I wanted to ask. One, you mentioned the air crash, but you know there are much more than air crashes now between Israel and Iran. There is a war. There are also statements by leaders of Israel that they will compel millions of Palestinians who live on the West Bank in Gaza and Israel to vacate their homes and land and go elsewhere. So I would like to know what Nigerians like yourselves, I think many in the world would like to know, what do Nigerians like yourselves feel about this current situation in the Middle East? So this is a question, one other question, but first I would appreciate a response to this question.
So before I answer, let me throw it to Dr. Kurfi. Go ahead, sir.
I can say that based on the question, what will Nigerians think or say about the current situation? I think it can be analyzed at two levels. The first is at the diplomatic level. That is in terms of the relation, the bilateral relations between, say, Nigeria and Israel, Nigeria and Palestine, right, at governmental level. And that is also because when the government, for example, Nigerian president attended, the funeral of the late Pope, for example, he was an embodiment representing Nigeria, right? Because the two countries have bilateral relations. That's just an example. So at government level, which may not necessarily differ from the citizens' perception, at government level, what the Nigerian government will definitely think and say is peace is what we want. We don't want conflicts. We don't want crisis. At least we have witnessed enough, or we are currently witnessing more crisis, starting from for example, the early 70s civil war, civil unrest, ravaged Nigeria, especially in the eastern part, where I was privileged to serve for 1 year at Abia. That is one. Later, we had crises that were either religious, ethnic-based, or sectoral, and what have you. Currently, we are facing a lot of challenges, security challenges. There is insecurity in especially North Central and Northwest, not even to talk of the Northeast, where you had the Boko Haram insurgency, and they are still now like coming back because the governor also has been crying out. So Nigeria as a country is not happy with what is happening in terms of the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Even not to talk or cite reference to what happened 2 days ago in terms of, the strikes, airstrikes from Israel to Iran. Why? Because the Abrahamic religions, at least Islam and Christianity, both have a lot to do with the Middle East. Muslims have claims, Jews have claims, Christians have claims. The Abrahamic religions, the source is the same, right? In Islam, Prophet Abraham is believed to be the great-grandfather of Prophet Muhammad. So basically, the country and Nigerians are not happy at all with what is happening. Muslims travel to Saudi to perform pilgrimage, Middle East. Christians travel to Israel to perform pilgrimage, Middle East. So nobody is happy with what is happening in terms of the deaths, every day, what you see on the television, what you read, what you see on social media is not anything encouraging. So to make it short, Nigeria and Nigerians are not happy with what is happening. And our prayer is that a lasting solution will be provided in the Middle East. But
I think I'll just ride on.
Yeah.
I'll just ride on what you've said to answer Prof's question. And that is the truth. No one should be actually happy about war, except one's mind is actually pervaded with all sorts of things. But really, the effects of war are just too numerous. And we have seen those effects in the Middle East with people, human beings being killed, human beings displaced, human beings affected. And it definitely goes against the tenets of us claiming to be one humanity. And that's the point for me, sir, that if we see ourselves as human first, then we would know what to do, how to respect each other, how to show each other dignity, how to uphold each other's tenets, even if we have different beliefs, even if we have different things that we hold on to. We are still one human race, and that is above all for me. So the sooner this comes to an end, I think the better for all of us at the end of the day, because as Dr. Kurfi said, pilgrimages happen to the Middle East. Pilgrimages happen from Christians, from Islam. That's where they go. So at the end of the day, who is really benefiting from this war? Who is benefiting? There are a lot more casualties, I would say, and I really hope and stand with Dr. Kurfi on this. We hope that this comes to an end sooner than later. Over to you again, sir.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your responses, which I appreciate. So the second question is something like this. You mentioned from 1999, you've had democracy back in Nigeria, which is a remarkable achievement. And you, like many other places, certainly India is also like that, but many countries are like that, where you have number of political parties, number of groups, number of ethnic groups, number of religions. And so are you reasonably confident that people will work together and make this democracy endure for a fair amount of time? And are you confident that partnerships between people of different ethnicities and religions, which has been one of the successes of Nigeria, these partnerships will continue in the foreseeable future?
Yeah. Okay, let me take it on, and then Dr. Kurfi will just conclude it. I think for me, partnerships are key. Collaboration is the way the world is going right now. And if we harp a bit more on collaborative efforts, knowing that we can't do it alone. Nigeria can't do it alone. We need others. We need other examples. I mean, Dr. Kurfi mentioned models earlier, but those models as it relates to leadership, we need those examples and we need those partnerships to thrive. Hey, the SDGs talk about partnerships, right? Yeah. So we need them to thrive, and they would actually get us, to a farther place. But 26 years of unbroken democratic rule is definitely an achievement. 26 years. And we look forward to many more years to come. However, as you have mentioned, sir, a lot of people need to understand that we need to work for it. I mean, it's not just coming on a platter of gold, right? We need to work. We need to put in the effort to ensure that Nigeria stays stable, that we have the security that we need, that we have the good governance, that we have all the tenets that lead to good democracy, to make democracy thrive. And this is about leadership. It is also about followership. So it's for us to pass this message on using, this platform is just one, to also use the platforms we have to pass this message on and make every Nigerian know that they have a responsibility to making Nigeria work. When we realize that, then we'll be on our way on the path to actually make a difference and sustain the democracy that we have. Over, Dr. Kurfi.
It is key that, people come to the realization that peace is the paramount. If there is no peace, then no meaningful development can occur. But also, the civil society in particular has so much to do to achieve that. And like Dr. Inya said, Nigeria alone cannot do it. We need the support of the international community. Yes, we have a lot of challenges here and there, including regional, because if you observe what is happening in West African sub-region, where you have our immediate neighbors, for example, Niger has a military, a dictatorship, in other Francophone countries, also Mali, Cote d'Ivoire. That has affected the regional cooperation that you have in terms of ECOWAS, which, also facilitates in the disintegration of the sub-region. But we do hope that, lasting solutions could be, brought up to address these issues. But at the grassroots level, and that is why I always admire the ideas of the great Gandhi. You've got to go back to the roots. Go back to, the communities. Mobilize people. Inform them. Let them know that civic rights are there, right? You've got your own cards to cast your votes for the persons you are interested in and that you trust. But that cannot be successful without decolonizing our minds. Decolonizing our minds by, trying to remove ourselves from that corruption. Let us have a bigger picture that the country is greater and more important than us. Yes, the system, the country, the democracy is bigger and greater than us, the individuals.
Yeah.
When the president dies, somebody takes over. The laws have made adequate provisions for that. So there is, and for us to succeed in fighting corruption, like I said, the idea of vanity has to be removed. The idea of greed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why do I have to go into a Philistine life of spending extravagantly? For example, I was setting an example to some of my students. I said, I would want you to understand the difference between corruption and vanity. Chances are, I have my wealth, I work hard to make my money, hard-earned money. But I bought 12 very expensive cars, very exotic cars, and wrote Mustapha Kurfi 1, Mustapha Kurfi 2, up to 12, and hire 12 drivers to drive them. I'm going to enter only one. I'm going to fuel all. I'm going to service all. I'm going to park them somewhere that if I have to pay for parking lot, I have to pay for all the 12. What sense does it make? Was that the simple life that people like Gandhi lived? Was that what they advocated for? Was that the life of Dr. Zik? Was that the life of Awolowo? Was that the life of Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, the first Prime Minister of Nigeria? I still have in my phone his picture when he was the Prime Minister. He went to Bauchi, his hometown. He sat down, was taking
on the floor.
Sugar cane. By the side was his son.
We can't find that now, Dr. Kurfi. We can't find that now. But Prof, I hope we answered your questions very appropriately. And we need to get to some questions from the platform. But let me hear from you, sir. Are we good with the answers?
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, thank you very, very much. I really appreciate the answers, and yeah, wonderful. And good luck to both of you in what you're doing.
Thank you so much. All right, so we have a question from the audience, and you can actually share your questions. It says, if Nigeria's poverty is the legacy of imperial plunder and the new violence of climate change, can democracy alone repair it? Or must Nigeria create a new economic and moral vision rooted in self-reliance, ecological care, and freedom from old colonial patterns? So that's a question to you, Dr. Kurfi. You would like to just touch on that. Can democracy alone repair all the issues, the plundering and everything that we're going through? Or should we begin to look at creating a new economic and moral vision rooted in self-reliance, ecological care, and freedom from old colonial patterns? If we can have that answer in just a minute.
Well, to me, I will say the question is well crafted. And I really, like the way the creative questioner asked the question. I
Yes.
will say that it is not. Left to me, the current democracy we are practicing is too expensive for us to practice. Damn too expensive. If you look at the budget for the National Assembly or for the two houses, House of Reps and National Assembly, it is much more than what is allocated for health, for education, and for power.
Right.
I will always set example with education, for example. All
Yeah,
these
because
battles
that's
that
your
we are
sector.
fighting, yeah. Because, and again, the problem is, if you do not allow people to be educated, then they will continue to be enslaved. Probably that's why the political class is not interested in allowing people to be educated, because you cannot be easily controlled.
Unfortunately.
You cannot be easily
Yeah.
monopolized. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's best that we begin to explore other avenues as against the current democracy that we claim to practice. Because even in the US, which we claim to model after, this is not the way they do their democracy, where you increase the salary of a legislator with 100 or 200%, and other people are struggling to survive. Even the minimum wage is not paid. Even the wage award is not given. Even the security is not assured, it's not guaranteed. So it's best that we begin to explore other, patterns of leadership. Other countries have practiced that, and they are making good progress. So I do not believe that the current democracy we are practicing is the only answer, and that can deliver us to the hopeful land. I do not buy the idea, unless there is a change.
All right then, and the change definitely begins with each and every one of us. So another question here, media and press play a very important role in democracy. Can you give us a picture of the level of freedom of the press and media in general? So I know Dr. Kurfi will have a few thoughts to share on this, but a lot of thoughts and a lot of talk has been going around in press freedom, and that the press is not really as free as it should be. I mean, I know in the US, pressmen and press women, okay, pressmen, they're only men, gentlemen of the press, right? No women in the press.
Gentlemen.
But I know in the US, for instance, people in the press who practice journalism actually have their opinions, and their opinions are clearly stated. So you know who is Republican, you know who is Democrat, you know where they stand. But for us in Nigeria, it's actually a very tricky game. And you can't have those clear lines. You need to be neutral. So some might say, okay, so this is stamping on press freedom. You can't do this, you can't do that. You can't express your opinion on air, on radio, on TV, or as the case may be. However, I mean, we still get by one way or the other, and still ensure that the information, right as it is shared with our greater audiences out there. So while there's still that debate on press freedom and a little more that needs to be done, so the press doesn't look like it's gagged and you can only say some things and you can't speak out for, what you truly believe and what you truly stand for, there's still some more work that needs to be done in that regard. Dr. Kurfi, I'm sure you would have something briefly to share on this.
Definitely. I'm happy that you are from the media side, and you know this better than I do, because you practice it, and probably you had in the past, or probably most recently, received some threats from people like you've been too
too opinionated. Too opinionated.
So, there are some people that are doing a great job. One of the best things that ever happened to Nigeria under the democracy, in terms of the freedom of the press, which also comes with freedom of expression, is the proliferation of media houses. Here in Kano, for example, you've gotten, I think, close to 50 different media houses.
In
television.
Abuja, I've stopped counting. Yeah, stopped counting.
That is it. That's it. So one thing is, even if we say that, the freedom of the press is infringed, but to a great extent, it is not in Nigeria, because people voice out their, opinions. I believe you know this guy, Shogun,
Yes. Okay,
who
Baloye.
is
Yeah.
who is always like straight to the point, criticizing the government. During the military junta, you don't see that happening, right? Again, with the proliferation of, the social media, these are platforms that people are expressing their own, opinions. So the freedom of press, yeah, like Dr. Inya said, it's kind of tricky, because if she is employed to work with Mustapha Kurfi media, whatever, for example,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
she does not go by the owner's interest, she'll be fired. And no
So
job
that's
security
another
for her.
thing.
No
Interest.
job security.
Interest. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
No job security for her. Permit me to
Okay.
cite reference to what happened recently. A professor at Usman Danfodio University lost his life because he was sick, and what was demanded for his treatment was 13 million naira. 13 million converted to
Unfortunately.
US currency is 8,000 US dollars. This is a young, promising academic, a professor of computer science. He had to pass on while we were watching. Nothing was done.
And that's so unfortunate. I'm so sorry. Honestly, it's so unfortunate that that happened. But let me just take this last question very quickly. Problems of
Okay.
corruption and many other vices are discussed today. Do you think the people of some countries were inherently of that mindset, or is it a legacy of colonial rule? What do you think, very briefly? If you can answer that in
Well,
30 seconds, sir.
I do not believe in the idea that, corruption is inherent. Like, you are
Yeah.
now taking us back to the argument whether it's like biological or pathological or what have you. I believe, if and only if we are being truthful and honest, like Professor Rajmohan was saying, we
Yes.
could fight this. I do not believe that, there are certain people that it is part of their DNA that they are corrupt. No, if you argue in that line, I can now say, why is it that those that are corrupt, when they travel to countries that are less corrupt, they also
They
become
align.
less corrupt, or they align?
You know,
It is the
and this
situation
issue
that
of,
dictates.
yeah.
Mhm.
And this thing you just said about the DNA and there's corruption in our DNA. I heard it a lot when I was on radio. I mean, you hear people calling in to say this corruption is in our DNA. Even an unborn child is corrupt. I'm like, come on, how
It means
can
they have
you say
accepted.
that?
They have accepted defeat,
Exactly.
which
And
means
that is,
if given the
yeah.
opportunity, they will also do worse.
And that is why we need to keep setting the standard. Professor Rajmohan, you mentioned something about those circles of integrity, having people of integrity. And it's something that my organization, Luxterra Leadership Foundation, have actually highlighted, to have models of integrity. So last year, we had 48 models who were, shown to the public to say, look, people can still stand for what is right. We still have people living with integrity in Nigeria. And being able to highlight these people, I know some other organizations have done same to show that there are people who are still trying, going against the tide to live lives of integrity. And I mean, that's a final word for me, really, that this is possible and we can do it if we all put our hands together, realize that we are one humanity, as we have come together on this platform today to say, realize that we are one humanity and fight for that humanity to ensure that we do what is right at every point in time to uphold the tenets of integrity, of love, of togetherness, of peace, and the one humanity that we desire. Thank you, Professor Rajmohan. Thank you, Dr. Kurfi. Let me hand it over to Run to just conclude at this point in time. I'm sorry, Run, we went away with your time.
No, no worries at all. I'm so sorry to everyone. We couldn't get to everyone's questions because I'm afraid we do have to wrap up. But I just wanted to thank our incredible guest panelists for an enlightening conversation on this critical issue. And you, obviously, our attendees for joining this webinar this morning, this afternoon, or evening, or wherever you are. But the conversation does not end here. Please be sure to follow We Are One Humanity on social media to stay updated on our upcoming programs and monthly webinars, and where we continue to build conversations around justice, governance, and human rights across the globe. We also feature writing and commentary from contributors around the world. So if you are interested in sharing your voice or submitting a piece, please visit our website for submission guidelines or reach out directly. I just want to wish everyone to be well and safe, and thank you again for all joining us today. Thank you so much to Dr. Inya Ode, Mustapha Kurfi, and
Thank
Rajmohan
you.
Gandhi.
Thank you for having us. Professor
Thank
Rajmohan
you
Gandhi.
so much for having me.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much, Prof.
Remain
Thank you,
blessed.
Ron.
And
And
we'll be
great
looking
talk.
for the recorded version.
Right.
Yes,
right,
yes. Our
right.
recorded version will also be live up on our website in the next day or so. So for those of you who couldn't stay or ask any questions or watch the entire thing, please make sure to find that on our website as well.
Right.
Thank
All
you all
right.
Thank
so
you
much.
so
Take care.
much. Thank you.
All right.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.